You're listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. I'm Elena Paweta, Executive Communication Coach and TEDx organizer. With each episode, I'll share with you communication tips and ideas from top business leaders to help you excel in your career. Hello, everyone. Today, my guest on the podcast is Oscar Santolalla. He is a book author and a podcaster. Recently, he issued a new book, Rock the Tech Stage, about which we will talk about today. He's also a book author of the book Create and Deliver a Killer Product Demo. And he has his own podcast for actually a very long time, since 2014. He has a podcast, Time to Shine, on which I was a guest a couple of years ago. And now it is my honor to invite Oscar back to Ideas and Leaders podcast. Hi, Oscar. It's great to have you here on the podcast.
Hello, Elena. It's my pleasure talking with you now on your podcast. So congratulations for that. And it's a fantastic initiative that you have. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to have you here. So I know that you're on a mission to help people in technology companies to present better, to be better speakers, to inspire others, to sell more. And recently you wrote a new book. This is something that you did in 2020 when a lot of people got very creative and a lot of new books and podcasts appeared. And you have a great book, which is called Rock the Tech Stage. So what is this book about?
Okay, this book, as you say, I'm author and I'm a podcaster as well. But at the same time, I am an engineer. I work as a sales engineer in a company called Ubisecure here in Finland. And originally, of course, my career comes from the tech. So I've been engineer doing different roles, starting from more technical to more sales and marketing oriented as what I do today. So during this time, of course, I struggled a lot myself in the beginning to just to have the courage to speak to give a presentation. Um, and gradually I start learning from some people who do it in an extraordinary way. So I start watching the videos, reading books about how people in technology arena and also of course in other industries were doing that, and then start analyzing why they were so effective, inspiring in many cases, because those are the ones we remember. We remember the ones who were not only effective but inspire people, so people were ready to buy, to pre-order, to share on the social media whatever they say, etc. So that's what I bring in this book. I bring a compilation of a lot of stories, success stories of these people in the tech industry, and what are the best pieces of advice. I have also interviewed other people, let's say less famous, but absolutely brilliant people who are in the tech arena and they are speaking. Some people are doing in conferences regularly. Some people are coaching people in the tech arena. So that's what I bring, because I know that um, you mentioned the mission. Yeah, I really feel it's a mission because there are a lot of brilliant people in the technology arena who are building products, building new technology for solving today's biggest problems. And many face the problem of failure, because not because of they have the wrong technology, they don't have the inferior technology, not necessarily because of that, but because they fail in spreading the word about their ideas. They don't get support from investment, from partners, from customers. So many we don't hear about them because they try for 1-2 years and then fail. And so that's what we need today. We need people who are working in technology, who bring their best ideas for the betterment of everybody. So that's what I'm bringing in this book.
Yeah, and it is really challenging sometimes to be interesting and captivating when you're speaking about technology. For many people, technology is not a very exciting topic. Yes, for those who are more, let's say, in soft skills.
Mm.
And very often we need to get to investors, we need to be interesting, to tell about it in an interesting way. So can you tell us maybe a few tips from your book? How can we make those tech presentations more interesting?
Yeah, there are quite many in the book. They are the core of the book is 10 secrets, 10 secrets that people can that these successful speakers are using, and people can anybody can use. Some are more basic and some are more advanced. The more advanced can be about using demos, using metaphors, for instance. But the basic ones are, if you ask me the top three, one is storytelling, another is passion, actually something I discovered a lot interviewing people. And in these times especially, is interaction is super important. So I can explain you from these three, for instance. So for storytelling, why storytelling is important, particularly in technology. First of all, because people will remember stories more than anything else. So when there is a talk, there's a presentation, people, if you remember something from that, will be because it was illustrated with a story, or you will remember the story of the person, why this person is there, why he started this company. So first of all, is that you will remember the stories. The second one is because stories is one of the the best tools to simplify, humanize in some cases the technology, because technology is difficult in most of the cases. It's something new, completely new for the others, so it's difficult to just get it, to just understand. And then when you understand, try to feel, okay, yeah, but why should I care about this? So I can give you one example there. There are many great storytellers. One is super interesting. It's by Jane Shen from Embrace Innovation. That they created a small incubator, portable incubator. It was designed for remote areas where it's difficult to bring an incubator because it's very remote, and also because maybe there's no electricity or there's no money to keep it running as it should be. So they designed it. It was, in practice, it's just one little bag, like a sleeping bag for a baby, but that has a special material that the temperature keeps stable for many hours. So talking about if you go and pitch about an incubator that is cost effective, blah blah blah, that could be kind of boring. But when Jane Shen she start all the time with stories. For instance, she started many presentations. I watched many of them. She started showing just one photo in which there was one little baby in one person's hand. So that was the photo, person hand and a little baby. The baby was too smaller than it's a neonatal baby, so it was smaller than usual, and the baby was struggling to survive, actually. And just by bringing this photo and telling the story behind that, humanizes the product. The product is health tech. There's a lot of technicalities, difficult stuff, but bringing these stories humanize the product. So that's one way to make it very concrete. People understand, okay, I know what you're talking about, but also why it's so important, this product, this innovation that you are bringing.
Yeah, it is so powerful, this example that you mentioned. And I'm sure that if we start speaking about technology immediately, then people would be like, ah, boring. But when we start with something powerful, like showing picture of a baby or showing what actually this technology can give us, can bring us, this is really powerful. And also, I think that Steve Jobs was a great storyteller,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is a great example of how we can speak about technology in an interesting way and getting people engaged and getting people thinking about themselves also. because when we hear stories, we start maybe thinking about how we can apply those things in our lives. So yeah, it is really, really a great tip. So what else can we do to make our speeches in tech
Mhm.
interesting?
Yeah, stories is that. The second, the another aspect about stories is that actually it will show about, it will tell about you, it will tell about yourself. That's the opportunity to tell about yourself, especially when you tell your own stories. So because people will buy from another human, so they want to know about you and know a little bit about you. So you show the relevant stories, and people will connect. Okay, I like you. I want to support you. I want to buy you. I want to learn more about you. I want to hear more about you. So that's, then after stories, uh, passion is super important. And I was playing a bit more, of course. The first time I was considering passion as one of the topics in the book, the 10 topics. And I don't know if you remember that former Microsoft CEO, Steve Ballmer, one guy who was running on the stage, sweating. So that's one way of seeing passion, of course. Guy running, jumping, shouting. That's one way of thinking. But also, I discovered when I interview many of the speakers that's how they started. They started finding the topics that you are passionate about, that you really care a lot about, that you would spend a lot of time talking. For instance, if you talk with your friend, if you go for a coffee, for a beer, you'll be talking about that even just because you care about that a lot. So that's important to find when you, especially when you start, try to find those topics that you really care about a lot, because that will ignite you to talk about that and show the passion. And as well, there are many examples, and you can see speakers that inspire people following, want to see them, hear them, because they are absolutely passionate about what they talk about. So that's a must. um, Unlike sometimes, well, for work, sometimes we have to talk about topics that we are not so passionate. Sometimes for work we have to, but if you want to become a professional speaker, or someone who speaks um, constantly, represent your company, make sure that your new company or your new product gets the attention. You have to show that passion.
Yes, absolutely. We need to be excited about what we're speaking about. Um, but what if we're not excited? What if you have to make a tech presentation? Maybe you're not the owner of the product. Maybe you were just working in the team, in the developing team, and you have to present it. But you don't feel this excitement, because when you feel, it is easy to show. It is very
Mm.
authentic. You're just being happy because you're presenting your thing, your baby, your product.
Yeah, yes.
But what if you're not excited? What can we do to
Mm.
boost this?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question, because as I said, sometimes we have to talk about what it's our duty. So that's it. What I recommend in those cases is to explore what are your passions, your things that you really care. Can be hobbies, can be sports. Many people are into sports, and you see in social media, oh, I just run 7 kilometers, or so this kind of. So that's one of your passion. There can be another cause you care. You might care about the environment, about the water, or many things, and try find a way to connect. Or can be just a hobby, as playing games. Can be anything, but everybody is very fond of something. If you don't want to call it passion, you like a lot something. Everybody has that. So try to find a connection with that. And then you need to use, of course, a bit your creativity, but try to find the connection. For instance, if you like running marathon, connect the endurance of doing that, the endurance of running, with the endurance of some project that requires several steps, and they're hard milestone, etc. So find a connection, so you could uh, use stories and combine the topics. That's something that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, this is a great advice. So, what else? So, you mentioned stories, you mentioned passion, and what else can
Yes.
we do to make it more interesting?
Quite many things. I think the other important, especially in these times where we are like now, speaking, communicating virtually, is the interaction, because the interaction has been always important in the audience. Nobody wants someone who is in the same room, standing there and being like a zombie, not showing emotions or not interacting, not looking at them. That has been always there. But now there are bigger challenges with speaking in front of a camera. So interaction is super important because as you know, when you speak, for instance, now I can see you, Elena, but I cannot see the persons who are going to listen to this podcast. So if I were in a virtual conference, there would be, maybe I would see one person and there might be 50 person or hundreds of persons looking at me, but I don't have any clue what they're doing, or if they are uh, interested, they are excited. Maybe many are excited, but I don't have any clue about that. So how
Yeah.
to get this interaction in both directions? One direction is that you make sure that the people are following you, because you ask, for instance, ask questions. Question is the basics. Always asking questions. Um, for instance, now you can ask, raise your hand. There are always this Zoom or the other tools. You can ask just a question. Who is can be a specific question like who is from the country you are, who is from Finland, who is from Poland. Raise your hand, and based on that you can ask, say something else. With that, you are activating the people already. So you're making sure they do something, so they are engaged with you.
Mm-hmm.
Something else you can do is okay. The other type of questions are the rhetorical questions in which you don't expect an answer. So you say something. So what's going to happen with our company if we follow these mistakes? So you don't expect an answer there. But by asking this question, people are thinking of that. Yes, what are you going to do? So they are, by doing the reflection of your question, they again they get connected with your topic, with your message. So those are the rhetorical questions. And also how you look at the camera is important, and that can be a bit exhausting at first. You have to be looking at the camera most of the time. It's good
Yeah.
that you see, of course, you're recording how you look, so be comfortable, but it's important that you are looking at the camera most of the time. So because people expect that it's like a one-on-one conversation. They are looking at you, and they expect that you are looking at them. So that's a normal conversation. And so that's something that you have to be most of the time looking at the camera and showing directly to them. That's about the how because if you are looking at the other side, like, or looking at the keyboard, or looking at the other side, also depends the location of the cameras. If the camera is too high in one side, too low, that will also look weird. So the idea is that the audience feel like you are in front of you and talking to you. And also for the interaction, there are tools like these interactive polls. You can ask questions and give them time to answer. And then these tools give, for instance, a pie chart or some graphs, very nice insight that the audience can get that insight at the same time. So they see the results and, oh, this is interesting. Wow, I haven't thought of this. In 100%, I would have expected another answer of like the results. And they say, oh, this is interesting. Take a screenshot. What, like in real conference would be take my phone and have a photo, in this case screenshot, or but yes, this kind of things. So there are tools, the basics, questions, um, and there are of course the interactive polls, but it's important that you use a few of these, depending how long is your talk, your presentation.
Yeah, very good tips. So we need to be interactive, especially in the online environment, ask questions. different types of questions from time to time to keep the audience awake, and use interactive tools, yeah, to raise a hand, to use the green check, to
Mhm.
answer in the chat,
The
to
chat as
do a
well, yes.
poll, something. So it is really important, and I totally agree now that we need to focus on this, especially if our topic is not very exciting. Maybe if we would be telling an interesting story, we would not need to use a lot of
Mm.
those tools. But if we're speaking about technology, if we're speaking about the topic which maybe people cannot focus on this topic for a very long time, then it is those tools are really, really great. What are the most common presentations in tech? What are usually the typical presentations we're speaking about, and you were speaking about in your book when you were giving tips?
Yes, there are. Yeah, it's, I don't know, difficult to completely classify this, but we go from the, let's say the normally the best ones, the ones that more remember are the like product launch that happens once, twice a year for big companies, or happening in like Apple does one or twice per year. Same like Microsoft, some other similar company, Tesla does when they have new big launches, and also there is a big conference called CES in Las Vegas. It's in first days of January, so that happened this year actually, just before the pandemic. So when they show the biggest innovations in huge stages. So those are normally, it goes the CEO or one top executive of the companies. And so those are ones. If you are, of course, an executive of a company, that's one type. Those are, of course, less common. The others are in different type of conferences in technology. For instance, if there are, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of types of conferences regarding to the topic. For instance, if you talk about just a conference about developer for Android application, can be for iOS applications, can be for Linux, can be for Microsoft, can be for Salesforce. So all these technical conferences focus on something particular. There are hundreds of those, and in most of those, the topic is more technical. So you are going to show, for instance, how to this new way of making an application is something relatively new, mostly technical. So these are very common, and a big part of the audience I'm addressing are like that, because there are many people who are already presenting in these conferences or are planning because they already good, or they would like to start presenting this conference. And then there are the others. Up to this, these are completely public, or at least there will be a live audience. And then it comes when you have inside your company, inside your organization, you have to do presentations even more common, more frequently. You might have to do, depends on your role, you have to do maybe 3, 5 presentations, meetings, sort of meetings per week. So people are doing meetings. Sometimes they are just hosting the meeting, or doing a big part of the meeting, like a report every week or a couple of times a week. So these are, of course, it's more relaxed because you know your colleagues, but sometimes you have to present to the big boss, and yeah, have to be more concise, more yeah. So that's, I would say, these are the main type of presentations. In each of them, there might be, for instance, a product demo that is related to my first book. In
Mhm.
sometimes it's useful to have a demo. It's you have,
Yes, so you are the author of the book Create and Deliver Killer Product Demo. So you
yeah,
have
that is here
the
actually.
whole book,
This is,
yes,
yeah.
about this topic. So what would you recommend for this type of presentations?
For demos, in this book, Create and Deliver a Killer Product Demo. So my main point is that to make a killer demo, outstanding demo that people will remember and will buy or will get a result that you want, is that first of all you have to be creative, to find some creative way to make it simpler to understand and memorable. The other element is that you need a clear structure, like in any presentation. You need a clear structure. And the other main point is that you have to be prepared for everything, because things can fail. So those are the core points. Creative. I ask in this book a lot about the wow moment, in which if you see the demo maybe is 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but people will remember only one moment, 10 seconds, and that's a wow moment. I don't know if you here Steve Jobs is a great example, because he had, for instance, the one example is when he brought the MacBook Air for the first time, so the thinnest laptop in the world at that time. So he brought it from a manila envelope, and that's something completely unimaginable at that time. So because the laptops were much thicker than the one we see today, so who would think that a laptop can fit into a manila envelope? So he brought the manila envelope and very, very elegantly start opening and showing, and people were like, wow. And that moment people remember. So they forget most of the rest of the presentation, but they remember that moment.
Yeah, this is great actually, to use such tricks, to use any kind
Props.
of props, yes,
Yes.
some kind of visual aids to show, I don't know, characteristics of our product. Um, w- because sometimes it takes only one thing, like an envelope, to make maybe a boring presentation into an interesting presentation, which people will be telling about, to like you're telling about it now because you still remember it. And if Steve Jobs would start with just describing that this laptop has so many inches, and with the technical things, then maybe not so many people would remember it. Indeed, it is very important. And how we can present the technical information, maybe numbers and figures and complicated information, in an interesting way. What can we do to make simple people like me, who is not into technology, who is not an engineer, understand those things? What can we do to make non tech people understand the topic?
Yeah, quite many of the storytelling is one. One is directly to make the storytelling is one. The props is another, because this example I just gave is a combination of a demo and the use of a prop as any object, any external object that you bring to illustrate one point. So using props is very useful. These are very difficult to, well, it takes effort to find them. That's why when I say the demos, creativity is one point, because without creativity, you don't get these ideas, that you have to spend time trying to, oh, how do I do it? Okay, manila envelope, and yeah, that's takes some time. So props is definitely a good one. I found just few examples of props. Let me see which other props is good. Okay, let me. I forgot the props. One prop is that for me was also super. I remember that's the first one that comes to my mind. Is actually from Han Rosling. He used to be um, a doctor in medicine, but also a statistician, and he was one of the biggest TED speakers of all times. And in one of he used a lot of props in many of these talks, but one that I remember most of the time is when he talks the talk was about um, statistics that bring the real numbers of the what many people call the developed countries, means that the, the poorer countries in a way, showing that in the last decades there has been so much progress, even though nobody knows about that. So he brought the statistics, showed the statistics, so that the huge advance of these poorer countries. But of course, there's still a lot to do. And he said he repeats the phrase, "The unseemingly impossible is possible," like saying that 50 years ago we thought that these countries would be like no hope, but decades later, yeah, there is hope. We can do more. So the seemingly impossible is possible. And then the last act of that presentation is that to show you that the seemingly impossible is possible, me, who is a person of, I think he was already 60 years old or something like that, he takes a sword and he swallowed the sword just in front of the people. And well, I was not there, but the first time I saw like, what? It's unbelievable. So the prop was this sword. Of course, he learned the skills at some point in his life to do the sword swallowing. He shows that the courage to try something difficult and to achieve it. Yeah, but something that you do that and people will remember.
Yeah, doing something shocking, it's indeed a great tool to attract attention and to make people remember the presentation. And also for in your book, Rock the Tech Stage, you were mentioning the tool which we can also use metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that for tech presentation, I think that this is a great thing to do when we want to, speak about the topic which is completely um, out of
Continue.
someone else's
Mm-hmm.
interests. Then you can tell the example of something else. So how can we use metaphor in a tech presentation?
Yeah, metaphor is a figure of speech in which you replace literal meaning with figurative meaning using visual language. So you say something that when you hear it, when the people hear it, they will think directly in something concrete. They will imagine, for instance, the Winston Churchill iron curtain. You can imagine an iron curtain. It's something that you can visualize in when you hear it. Um, so the idea is to create these metaphors because that are actually take some effort to do them. But I can give a couple of examples. One is one is interesting. For instance, what do you try to imagine? What do you think when I hear when I say building airplanes in the sky? Building airplanes in the sky. There's a video.
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. Yeah, there's a video of one company. Actually, it doesn't exist anymore. A consulting company that they had the video in which there was a plane, of course, on the skies, and this you see the clouds, everything. People were sitting there, but at the same time, there were construction people constructing the plane at the same time. Something a bit surreal, yeah, because yeah, it's surreal, but that can um, for instance, be the metaphor for a migration of a system. No, imagine migration of a system means that one day you are, I don't know, you're using, I don't know which tool you use. For instance, if you use a human resources software, imagine you are using every day that's you're using every day. And one day they tell you, oh, there's a maintenance window at Friday from 9 in the morning to 1 p.m. And you say, what? Because people don't want to be interrupted at all. You expect that the systems are going to run all the time, no matter what the technicians, the engineers are doing behind the curtains. You don't care, you don't know. So that's what people expect, that the systems we use today are running all the time. But in reality, many people, the technology are working behind that, are improving that, are adding new functionality. They are doing migration for instance, migration of data. They can do many things, but as users, you shouldn't be interrupted. So that's building airplanes in the sky. So that's one metaphor. Then there is one person in very interesting. You can, if you don't know him, he's one of the best. I would say one of the best speakers in technology today. He's from Microsoft. He's called Panos Panay. He presents the Surface family of products, and he does quite often product demonstrations or talks. He had a couple of interesting metaphors. Once he was describing the devices, for instance, for instance, the company who produces these earphones or microphones or Bluetooth speakers. There are many companies doing that. And some of them are using also Microsoft technologies to give a better experience to Microsoft products, for instance, Microsoft Teams or Skype, whatever. So, as these companies work together, they design in a way that it's completely smooth the use of this product together. And the metaphor that Panos Panay use is these are devices that sing. Devices that sing. So of course, literally, the devices are not singing, but they are giving you such a pleasure of experience, such a nice experience that you can feel that. And he used another metaphor. For instance, I don't know if you know the difference, but part of the software is written on normal computers, can be run on your mobile phone, but part of that is actually in the chips, so in the hardware. So there's a small part of this, yeah, software firmware is there. So what he said that the team that is always building these products, they are writing to the steel, means that they are writing code, they are programming also directly uh, to the hardware. So he uses quite many metaphors. And one person who absolutely have used many metaphors, and he recommends even in his own book, is the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff. So in his book, he said that we should be creating metaphors all the time and practicing, because those will help you a lot in presenting new products, new ideas.
Yeah, I really love this tool and metaphors and analogies also. So some uh, things that help us to explain complicated concepts in a maybe easier way, in more visual way, so that we can imagine something, we can understand something. So this are great. So the last question I wanted to ask you today, Oscar, is what would you recommend to the presenters in tech currently, because now almost all presentations are virtual. So what would you recommend for effective virtual presentations? You already mentioned being interactive, but what else can we do to make our presentations really powerful online?
Mhm. Yeah, besides the interaction that is very, very important, is knowing the tools very well. It's important. I think at this point, most people have so many virtual meetings, etc., that we have been using a lot of Zoom or Teams or tools. But it's important to know them well, to not to assume that things work. So know a bit more, know a bit more than the basic. That's important to try when you want to. I've been sometimes surprised also, because in every different software, when you share let's say a PowerPoint or another shared screen, in every software is different, the experience. So you get sometimes you share the screen and you don't see anything else. For instance, now I can see you, but in some software, if I share my full screen, I don't see you anymore. So practice very well. So because there are ways to find the way to to get what you want. and of course having a good equipment, good Microsoft, a good camera. So investing on that is super important. Yeah. So don't use the basic. Um, it's better to improve your hardware. That's, I think it's very important.
Yeah, so knowing your software and having a good quality hardware as well. Yes, those are very good tips for our virtual presentations right now. Thank you very much, Oscar, for being with us today and for sharing your uh, knowledge and the information about your book. I really recommend to our listeners to read the book Rock the Tech Stage if you're interested in the presentations in the tech area. And where can we find you, Oscar? And where can we find your book if our listeners would like to contact you?
Yes, thanks a lot for the opportunity, Elena. I'm more active in LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I'm active, Oscar Santolalla, and on Twitter also. You can find me on Twitter as well. LinkedIn is the most active for me. And the book, you can find it, and I think in most of the online stores you can find it. You can go directly to the publisher apress.com and search for Rock the Tech Stage, or you'll definitely find it in Amazon and Book Depository or most of the main bookshops. And also there's a website from where you can find some more information, is rockthetechstage.com as well. So welcome. So I hope you enjoy the book, and yeah, feel free to get in touch with me if you want to learn even a bit more about what we are covering in this book and what we cover in this interview.
Great. I will put all those details under the episode. And thank you very much for being with us today.
My pleasure, Elena.
Thank you for listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. Did you enjoy this episode? Let me know that you listened by tagging me in your LinkedIn profile and using a hashtag Ideas and Leaders. See you in the next episode.